Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my weekly compendium for the week ending Monday, January 17th, 2022. Case file number 474, written by IC Obligation, Secrets of Time, An Angry Doctor, and Yellow Pants. Years ago, I was working nights as a phlebotomist, person who draws your blood, in a hospital. There was this doctor who was notorious for ordering recurrent tests incorrectly. He would order a single draw when he really needed a serial draw 90% of the time, but because 1 in 10 times he really wanted a single, you always had to check with him. This night happened to be the start of daylight savings, so at 1:59 a.m., the clocks would turn to 3 a.m. instead of 2. At about 1:30, I get an order on my screen from this doctor. I was the only phleb on nights, and I worked with 2 techs. I sighed and then showed them. Look, Dr. X ordered this test again. I'll see if he's on the floor and if he really wants this or the serial draw. I went up to the floor and he was at the nurse's station. I remember it so clearly because he was wearing plaid black and yellow skinny pants under his white coat. I couldn't stand the guy, and I thought his loud, ugly pants just drew attention to his loud, ugly personality. I walked up to him and said, "Hey, I just got this order for XYZ patient. Did you mean to order the 3 serial draws?" He was dismissive and said something like, "Of course I did. Can you just draw 3? I, of course, cannot poke a patient 3 different times without orders, so I asked him if he could reorder it and I'd go back to the lab to print out the stickers and come right back and do the first draw. I drew a couple of patients quickly, knowing he'd take a few minutes to get the order in, rode the elevator back to the lab and checked my computer. It was 1:58 and the orders were there, so I printed them out and stuck my specimens in the centrifuge while they printed. I pulled the labels off the printer and looked closely and realized he had ordered the single draw again. I pulled up the order code, wrote it down for him, and went back to the floor to just ask him to order this exactly. When I got to the floor, he was standing exactly where he was when I had come up the first time, wearing plain black pants. I assumed some bodily fluid had forced him to change, and I knew he was going to be really annoyed when I asked him to reorder the labs. By now, it had definitely passed 1:59, so the clocks were reading 3 something. I asked him if he could reorder the test. He was totally pleasant and not at all frustrated that I was asking him again. I asked him if room 2008 had thrown up on him or something, and if that's why he had changed. He then seemed offended and was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Sorry to offend. When I came up earlier, you had on yellow pants, so I assumed something happened." He scoffed at me and said, "I've been wearing these all night. I don't own yellow pants. You must be confused." I'm thinking he's being weird and should just admit he got puked on, but whatever. And go back to the lab, print the orders, and finally draw the patient. I stopped to talk to one of the nurses for a moment on my way back down, and she says something like, "I saw you talking to Dr. X. He's being weird tonight, right?" And she seemed kind of shaken. I said, "Yeah, he was wearing those hideous pants and then tried to pretend he wasn't." She told me he walked into a room on one side of the wing, wearing the yellow pants right before the time change, and then walked out seconds later from the other side of the wing, wearing black. I was weirded out and went back down to the lab, where the techs asked me where the samples were for the patients I had drawn after first asking Dr. X to reorder them. I opened the centrifuge I had left him in, and they weren't in there. The order showed that the labels had never been printed, and when I apologetically went to redraw the patients, they had no idea who I was and didn't have cotton and tape on their arm from when I'd drawn them earlier. I still have absolutely no explanation for this. It appears that everything between first receiving the incorrect order and returning to ask him to reorder for the second time never happened. The techs didn't remember me showing them that he had ordered incorrectly the first time, or anything. The only reason I didn't check into a psychiatric facility was a nurse who corroborated my story. We hardly knew each other at the time, but we trauma bonded over the experience, and I've talked about it so many times. The weirdest part to me is that it coincided with daylight savings starting. That is completely a societal construct. Nothing actually physically happens when we move the clock, so what the heck? I still get the chills when I think or talk about it. And because people always ask the question why I was so tuned to the clocks and know exactly when things happened, I was a worker whose shift was an hour shorter that night. We all kind of watch the clock and do a mini celebration when it changes. Case file number 475, written by Gormless Schnitzel. Secrets of my little baby walking towards the light. When my son was about 2 years old, I saw him walk into a light on a baby monitor. It was late. I had been up late playing the first Destiny. We had this baby monitor we had gotten from the second-hand store. It had video and two-way audio with night vision as well. Well, I was starting to wrap up my game and go to bed, so I decided to check on him before going to sleep. I looked at the baby monitor and I froze. It looked like there was an extremely bright light coming through his window. Now, our bedrooms were right next to each other. It was a double-wide trailer with an add-on for a living room. Our room was the old living room we had converted into the master bed. His bedroom was right next to the kitchen. So if you walked out of our room and took a right along the wall, you would end up in the kitchen and the door to his bedroom. The window where the light was coming through was on the same side as our windows. No visible light from outside I could see. Lived down in a valley in the country. Pitch black outside. Still frozen from the shock of it all, I look back at the monitor and he's walking up to the window. I saw him pull the curtain aside, and at that point, I finally got myself to move. I took the monitor with me and watched till about midway between our room and his door. Light was still there, and he was looking through the window. My soul has left my body at this point. I finally get to his room. This all happened in a matter of seconds. Burst open the door, noticing no light coming out from under the door, and see him sleeping peacefully in his little toddler bed. I looked down at the baby monitor only to see the same image I see before me. I just stood there for about 20 minutes, shaking, and I'm sure all the blood drained from my face. I didn't sleep well for about a week after that. If anybody has ever experienced something similar, please let me know, because I still feel crazy to this day. Case file number 476, written by Messer11. Secrets of my earrings rejuvenating themselves. About a year ago, I bought some ear cuff earrings, the non-piercing kind. I didn't have any piercings at the time, so I wore these pretty regularly. I bought 4 of them. The first is a hoop style with 3 leaves wrapping around it, and the others were a set of 3 simple ear cuff hoops with a single leaf dangling. 1 in silver, 1 gold, and 1 black. I loved the 3-leaf one the most, and wore that one most of the time. So much so that I accidentally bent it too many times and cracked it along the center bend. I also broke one of the leaves off. I still wore it all the time regardless. Fast forward to when I got my helix pierced a couple months ago. I would wear my ear cuff to help keep the piercing in place. Around the time cold weather started to hit here, I started wearing a fluffy beanie hat. Well, one day while in the car with my kids and boyfriend, I went to take my hat off and it snagged on my ear cuff and my piercing. Hurt like hell, and I flailed to make sure my piercing was okay still. My cuff had fallen off and was on the floor. I put it back on once we got to the store. By the time we were done shopping, I went to touch my piercing and my cuff wasn't there again. I looked everywhere I could think of, but determined I lost it in the store. I was devastated. Here we are, weeks later, and I'm searching for my chapstick in my nightstand. I dumped everything out of the drawer to search for it, and my 3-leaf ear cuff came tumbling out onto the floor. At first I was ecstatic, and then I realized it had all 3 leaves still. I brought it to my boyfriend and asked if he had any explanation for it, and he just asked if I could have bought another one and just forgot about it. I know I didn't, but I still checked. There was just the original 4 in my purchase history. So then I thought that perhaps he got me a new one and was just playing it off. But I went to put it on and it cracked down the middle of the bend in it, just like my original one was, in the exact same spot. But it still had all 3 leaves on it. I have no explanation. Case notes, file number 476. It strikes me that one of your earrings effectively reset themselves back in time, but also in existence itself. I'm reminded of an episode of Stargate Universe, where, spoiler warning, there was a group left behind, part of the crew of the ship, and they were left behind on an alien planet that was lush and bountiful, only for them to magically reappear in front of the original cruise ship months later, and presumably tens of thousands of light years away. It was impossible. They should have died during winter from exposure, and they had a ship that was only capable of traveling on the surface of that world. No chance in hell it could travel through space fast enough to catch up to the Destiny. That was the main ship's name. But as both crews eventually find out, they did die on that planet. And slowly, they start dying again, in the same way they originally passed away. Like your earring breaking again, just in the same way it had the first time. I do freaking love Stargate Universe. Highly underrated show, even within the Stargate franchise. Case file number 477, written by Kitty, Secrets of Lost Keys and Diaper Bags. On Christmas Day, my great aunt came over to have Christmas with us. She brought my son so many gifts. In the middle of opening one, we find a car key in it. She goes, "Oh, I've been looking everywhere for that. Thank you, that's my spare car key." So my mother takes the key, walks it to my aunt's black purse and drops it in it. My son starts to get fussy. He's 8 months. So we got the toys in the car, packed up some good food, grabbed the gray diaper bag, and left. My diaper bag for my son is a light gray book bag. We didn't even open it because he did well without needing diapers or anything. My aunt's purse was by the door. It's a tiny black purse. Tell me how I got home and received text from my mom about how my aunt can't find this key again. Long story short, I'm unpacking the diaper bag yesterday and found it at the very bottom. I have this damn key and my mom is completely at a loss for words on how it got in my clothes bag. It's very interesting and I personally chalk it up to a spirit until I remembered glitches exist. Case file number 478, written by Repulsive Tomatilo 2. Secrets of my waifu vanishing in a poof. I just got home from work around an hour ago. I have these dreams every night where this Japanese girl is always riding shotgun in my dream car, which is a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner, for anyone who may want to know. The dreams have been getting a little too realistic for my taste. For example, she has a whole name, first, middle, and last. Either way, the dreams almost always consist of me and her driving and laughing to some dumb jokes. Back to reality. Well, tonight on my way home, I decided to just glance over to the passenger mirror, and she's just sitting there, same hair, clothes. It was her. I'm not sure why, but I wasn't really unnerved in any way by this, until she looked over at me and smiled. I smiled back and she was gone. Poof, she vanished, as if she was never there. Hell, the seatbelt was undone. I'm honestly not sure how to feel about this, y'all. I'm guessing that in another reality or universe, I got the girl of my dreams. I guess that dreams can be realities, but could there be an actual meaning behind this? Case notes, file number 478. I like your theory that in another universe, you got the girl of your dreams, and seemingly peered into that universe, briefly, only to see her vanish moments later. It's sad in a sense, isn't it? But also in another extremely exciting. We're playing a game, folks, and that game has nearly infinite possibilities, and they're all being run concurrently to our own. Maybe it's as simple as we're the real conscious players, and the other universes are simulations. That's why if, for example, in quantum immortality, we die, we can just jump our consciousness to another version of ourselves, without that other self's consciousness being erased or anything. Maybe right now, they're on a sort of programmed autopilot, waiting for a player to occupy them. Case file number 479, written by Oh Fail, Secrets of Becoming Someone Else. This story isn't creepy, but it's so vivid and distinct that I still think about it years later. I had a, subjectively, long, involved dream where I was a vendor in a fish market. I remember getting up early, dressing, doing a whole morning routine, going to get tea, heading out to the docks, buying fish, loading them in a cart and going to get ice, then haggling for ice, buying some less fresh fish while I was at it, then going to a market to my stall, setting up and selling fish all day. It was so real. I talked to friends, smoked nasty cigarettes, haggled customers, ate lunch, had tea, and just lived through the day. At the end of the day, I cleaned up, counted my cash, paid the stall rent, went home, cooked some of the fish I hadn't sold, slung in with some veggies and rice that I'd traded for. I drank more tea, relaxed for a while, then drew a hot bath, soaked and smoked some more cigs, then went to bed. The next morning, I woke up refreshed, ready to go down to the docks to buy a fresh catch. Except I was in my house next to my wife, truck parked outside, and it was Saturday, no work. My wife and I were getting geared up to go skiing in Oregon, and the car was already packed. Weird thing was, in the dream I was single and a smoker. I'm not in real life. And the whole dream, I had been fluent in Chinese, the effortless kind of fluency that only comes from a lifetime of speaking it. Oh, and I had been Chinese. I'm a big, hairy white dude, somewhat fluent in Spanish, and I know a little bit of Russian, but It was just weird. I've never worked in a fish market. I wonder who it was. I wonder what that was. Case file number 480, written by Anonymous. Secrets of the 23rd Floor's Entity. I work as a security/nighttime attendant at an apartment building. It's 24 stories and one of the oldest buildings in the city. One night I'm sitting here when my phone rings at about 3 a.m. and I answer, "Hello, this is Draven at the front desk. How can I help you?" The voice on the other end sounded female, but was totally garbled, and the only bit I could make out was 23rd floor. I tried to tell the person I couldn't understand them and asked what apartment they were in, but again garbled response and 23rd floor. After the third time of trying to understand them and the same response, I said since I couldn't understand them, I'd come up and meet them in the hallway. So I go to the main elevators, and both are up on the, surprise, 23rd floor. Luckily, we have an older service elevator, and it's only on the 7th floor, so I call it down. I get it and hit the button for the 23rd floor, but it won't move and the inner door won't close. So I go to unlock the reset panel and boom, we start going up. The door is still open. I'm freaking out and the elevator is shaking because it goes pretty fast and is old. As I'm going up, I just stay towards the back and finally I reach floor 23. I step out. The door closes just fine and I look around the hallway. There's nobody around. I walk along slowly, trying to listen for anyone awake who might have called, but there's nothing. So now I head the opposite direction and go towards where the regular elevators are, and when I get to them, they are just sitting there with their doors open. I was pretty freaked out, but I knew it could have just been the elevators on the fritz, so I get in and figure I'll just reset them when I get to floor 1, when I hear the sound of the back stairwell closing. So I quickly get out and go to the stairwell, and lo and behold, no one's there. But the maintenance door to the machine room is ajar, and at that time I'm the only one in the building with a key. At the top of the building is a large machine room housing all the really loud machinery that does stuff in the building and allows access to the roof. I don't like going into it because it's creepy as hell and no one ever goes there, so at this point I'm seriously freaked out, but I muster up and head in. I shout, "Hello?" And there's no response. The lights in this room flicker because they're crappy fluorescent, so I can't see well either. But at the end of the room, I can make out the roof access door, and sure as hell, it's slightly open. So I slowly continue forward, checking the space in between each machine as I walk by, and there's no one there, so I open the roof access door. I can't see anyone ahead of me on the roof, but there is a slight wraparound, and if there was a jumper or something, I needed to be sure. So I step out and leave the door ajar like it was. Almost immediately, the door is pulled shut. Now I might have written it off as wind or something, but this door is hard as hell to shut, and really hard to open too. Really hard. I immediately grab the handle and hank it open, slam it behind me and run straight for the maintenance door. It automatically locks when it's closed, so I slam it shut too and go back to the 23rd floor hallway. Get into the elevator, doors are still open, and go all the way down to the first floor. I go back to the main lobby, and as soon as I sit down, the phone rings. I pick it up, don't say a word, and sure as hell, the same voice from earlier, garbled, again only audibly saying, 23rd floor. I hung up the phone, turned the ringer off, and spent the rest of the evening just staring at the parking garage security monitor, There's been a bunch of creepy things happening at this building. It's basically like the Overlook Hotel at night. I walked past the dark room here on the first floor once and swore I saw myself standing inside it. The next night, as I'm inside said room cleaning, the lights flip off and I turn around to see a quick flash of myself walking past. Case file number 481, written by Notoriously Nobody. Secrets of Fluid Time. This morning was a normal morning. Woke up at 7, showered, made coffee and breakfast, got dressed and left for work at 8. My Ring video has me on camera leaving at 8 a.m. I sat in my car, started a podcast that's just over 1.5 hours long, and began my drive to work that takes at least an hour with zero traffic. I began to panic about the amount of traffic this morning because it was taking a long time to get to work. Then something really wild happened. My podcast ended. I'd listened to the entire episode. Horrified, I looked at my clock and it read 8:27. What? How? It's only been 27 minutes. My car clock had to be wrong. I scrambled to check my cell phone. It said the same thing. I pulled over in a full-blown panic. I checked my Ring camera to see if I'd left early. Nope, 8 a.m. I couldn't make any sense of it at all. I pulled my podcast player up and made sure the episode was 87 minutes long. What the hell? So I started the next episode and continued my drive to work. Finally got there and parked. It's only 8:54. That's the fastest I've ever gotten to work, with some of the heaviest traffic I've ever seen. So much so that while pulled over, I logged into my time clock system and sent a warning to management that I may be late due to traffic. Now I'm a half hour early. I have no idea what just happened. Bonus file, written by Sonora, Secrets of The Screaming Demon Right in My Face. A few years ago, I worked in this restaurant that was newly renovated. It was a Chinese restaurant before, but it closed because the man who had owned it before had died in the office, I think. There were 3 of us in the kitchen this one particular day, 2 of us on the cook line and 1 on the dishwasher. If you have ever been in a restaurant kitchen, then you know all the background noise there is. What with the dishwasher, the big stove and grill fans, and the large refrigerator and freezers you can always hear. Well, all of a sudden, it just goes dead quiet. At first, I thought it was just me, but the other 2 also looked up, confused. I was the first one to walk off the cook line and check the refrigerators and freezers and the hood fans to make sure they were all still on, and they were. But back in the main cook line and dishwashing area, it was dead silent. We all kind of just stood there for a couple minutes, absolutely bewildered. After a couple minutes, the sound slowly started to fade back. Suddenly, I didn't feel so good. I started having tunnel vision and felt nauseous. My boss, who was with us in the kitchen that day, told me to go outside for a while until I felt better. While I was outside, I saw her rush into the office and then I heard her make a phone call. She called someone and told them she was letting us go early, and then she asked them to bring her some sage, an abalone shell, a feather, and some kind of oil. It turns out that she felt something walk through her. Damn it. I was standing right behind her, inches away. I left and drove as freaking fast as I could to get as far away as possible from there. I swear, I barely slept that night, but every time I closed my eyes and started to drift off, I got a picture of a screaming demon thing right in my face. Case file number 482, written by Frequent Series 2892. Secrets of Those Evil Petrifying Eyes. So here's my story. I always thought that I believed in these kinds of things, but now that it's happened to me, I'm trying my hardest to rationalize what I saw. Unfortunately, I can't. I just want to start off by saying I am 37 years old and I have never experienced anything like this in my life and hope to never experience it again. This happened 3 days ago. It was 11:30 at night and I was taking my dog out to go to the bathroom. My boyfriend and I live on about 4 acres of land. We have an overgrown field in the distance. It's somewhat near the house, but not super close. I was carrying one of those spotlight flashlights. It's so powerful that you can see the beam shoot through the night sky. My dog and I were getting close to the field, so I decided to scan it with the flashlight. What I saw next petrified me. I saw this creature walking through the field. It had a human-shaped head, but the eyes were nothing like I had ever seen. They were so big that it took up a majority of its face. They glowed in a way I've never seen before. It was a piercing glow. I know that flashlights can create a certain type of reflective glow, but this was different. It was almost like the light was shooting out of its eyes. I live in a wooded area, so I have come into contact with many animals at night. This was not the eyes of any animal I'd ever seen before. It's weird because I don't recall seeing a mouth, but that could be because I was so fixated on its abnormally large eyes that I wasn't paying attention to its lower face. Its eyes had this shocked but evil look to them. That expression really stood out to me because it was so eerie. Now let's get to the body. It was somewhat human-shaped, but it had abnormally long extremities. Even though the overgrown field covered some of its body, I could still tell the shape of it. The arms were too long for its body. I checked out how tall the overgrown grass was the next day, and I estimate that the creature was about 6 feet tall. Also, the way it walked terrified me. It was facing me and walking sideways while staring at me. I have to admit that I got so scared I lowered the flashlight to the ground, but then I got enough nerve to raise it back up after a few seconds. It had made its way down the field a little bit more, but it was still walking sideways and staring at me with those terrifying eyes. Needless to say, I took my dog inside after that and had a mini freakout. I've done a lot of research online and I cannot figure out what that thing was. I just know it wasn't an animal or a human, and I hope I never see it again. Case notes, file number 482. Well, they say that eyes are the gateways to our souls. I don't see why this wouldn't apply just the same way to animals, or monsters. We all get a quick sense of a person from seeing their eyes. Or hell, maybe what you saw was a human-alien hybrid. Given he was walking upright and tall, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it was. Also, honestly, to me, the most bone-chilling aspect of this story is how you describe it walking sideways and still staring at you. There's a deliberate, conscious cunning to that description. I'm glad you got out okay. Case file number 483, written by Couple Technical 6795, Secrets of Shaw Air Force Base's Unknown Visitor. This happened in Shaw Air Force Base in 2005. My now ex-husband was an E6 and he worked nights on the F-16. I would be home overnight with our 2 sons, aged 5 and 2. First, I need to describe the house. It was a long hallway with rooms on either side, partially open floor plan from the dining room to kitchen, where there was a half wall for part and then a whole wall. From my bedroom door, I could see to the back door, straight through the dining room, and part of the kitchen. We had a large rack by the back door where we stored dry goods. Military housing never has enough storage space in my opinion. One morning I was awoken by a noise in the kitchen. I jumped out of bed afraid my younger son was getting into trouble. He's 18 now and still a pain in the butt. I did not grab my glasses, and without them I am legally blind. I can see colors and rough shapes, that's it. I looked towards the kitchen and saw what looked like a man in an Air Force uniform. Again, I can barely see, so I'm going off color and shape. The figure is holding a box and facing the rack. Of course, I assume this is my husband and I say, "Hey, you want me to cook you something?" The figure moves so that it is facing me. The box drops to the floor and the figure moves to the part of the kitchen I can't see. So my ex-husband was very unpredictable and emotionally volatile. So my assumption right here is that he's mad at me for something, again, and I'm gonna need to deal with his attitude. I turn back to my night table and get my glasses. Then I walk to the kitchen. This entire action takes maybe 30 seconds. It is a small house. I'm talking as I walk to the kitchen. Did something happen at work? You know, to diffuse the situation. No response. I turn into the kitchen and there's no one there. It would not have been possible for anyone to get out of the back door without me hearing it, because the door squeaked. Again, this was only 30 seconds, tops. I walk and glance through to the living room, which is also empty. Then I look at the time on the microwave, 6:17. My husband didn't get home until 8. Also, a box of Annie's mac and cheese was on the floor in front of the rack. This happened 16 years ago, and I still try to sort it out in my head. I do not believe in ghosts, I can say we had a few other uncomfortable incidents in that house. There were 2 bathrooms, a full one and then a small ensuite to the master bedroom, which was our older son's room. He had toys and stuff. We didn't need the space. He refused to use the ensuite. He said it was creepy. One time I was taking a shower in there. Can't remember why I wasn't using the normal bath, and I saw movement outside the curtain. I glanced out and I swear I saw a man in a uniform looking through the window, then dropping real quick. I screamed for my husband and he ran outside, and there were no footprints or anything. I ran a daycare out of our house, and occasionally we would hear stuff moving around in the daycare area, especially at night. That stopped after we got a dog, so I can't rule out South Carolinian giant water bugs playing with the pretend kitchen. I don't believe in ghosts or the paranormal, but I know what I saw and heard. I was wide awake by the time I was in the doorway and saw him, which rules out hypnagogia. I don't know what I experienced. I am okay without knowing. I thought this would be of interest for others though. I've not shared this story before. Bonus file, written by Weird Person 1670. Secrets of the freezing hand on my neck. My grandfather died in May 2020. At my house, my mother, who wasn't a fan of my grandfather, said that he was better off dead. Grandfather had anger issues. All of a sudden, a mug came flying out of the kitchen and shattered on the wall. Everyone was in the living room. I don't know how. That's not the only thing that happened. I went to my basement to turn off the dryer since the laundry was in the basement. My basement is always freezing no matter what time of year it is. I felt a freezing hand on the back of my neck. My uncle died in June 2012 and was a prankster. I whipped around, looking behind me. Nothing. I was going to the stairs and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a guy in a bloody military uniform. It was my uncle. He died being shot multiple times while serving in the military. I know I'm not crazy. I think this is paranormal. It's scary, but I got used to it. I have a lot of paranormal experiences. I don't know what to do when I have these experiences. Bonus file, written by Gobo Beats. Secrets of an old lady vanishing with her entire car. I've been hesitating posting this for quite some time because it really makes no sense to me. It is absolutely a mind-screwing event and it feels absolutely unbelievable no matter how many times I replay it in my head. In 2017, one of my good friends lived in Portland, Oregon. He was offered a new job in Long Island, New York, and he took it. He asked me to fly out so I could go on a road trip with him across the country so he wouldn't be alone. Of course, I agreed and flew out from JFK to PDX. We have many stories from this road trip, but none stranger than what happened to us in Ohio. After a few days on the road, we had entered Ohio. I wish I remembered exactly where this took place, but honestly I don't recall. All I know is it was past Zanesville, heading east, where we had stayed the night before. My buddy was driving as I was reaching towards the ground, trying to grab my phone that I had dropped. He suddenly said, "This old lady next to us keeps pointing at me. I think she wants me to pull over." I, always paranoid, said, "Screw that dude, keep driving." But he pulled over. A black Escalade with plates from Alaska pulled in front of us. Out popped a woman, no younger than 60, that said, "I'm glad I got to you boys when I did. Your tires are smoking." It's important to note we were towing his Camry with the U-Haul we were in. Side note, what happened in Zanesville was we got stuck in the parking lot, couldn't back up, so had to rehitch his car. We realized later he left the emergency brake on. Anyways, after she said this, we looked at each other completely puzzled and immediately at the tires. They were absolutely smoking, looking like they had bullet holes in them. This is where it gets strange. Not even a few seconds after we kneeled down to inspect the tires, she was gone. No goodbye, no sound of a car pulling off, just gone. The whole interaction from her getting out of the car to her vanishing couldn't have been more than 15 seconds. I didn't have a doubt in my mind she vanished, and my friend looked at me pale as a ghost, confirming exactly what I was thinking. I don't know for sure what would have happened if we didn't stop. I don't know if the car would have caught fire or anything else, but I do know She was an angel to us, real or not. I've tried to look into stories like this, but haven't had any luck finding anything. Case file number 484, written by Heat Visions, Secrets of Awaking to an Alien Home. Let me preface this by saying that when this happened to me, I, 33 male, was barely 16 years old and was as much of a skeptic or a believer as any kid at that age would be. I've had other unexplained incidents before this, but this is the one that stayed with me most of all. So I went to bed in my very boring, very normal mid-2000s bedroom, played a little Nintendo DS, later than I should have on a school night, I'll admit, then slept for maybe an hour or two, a little after 1 a.m., before waking up in desperate need to pee. I roll out of bed, not bothering to grab my glasses, my first mistake, as someone who's literally legally blind without them. And I take the muscle memory 4 steps diagonally across my tiley bedroom floor. I am a very tactile person due to my visual impairment, and I've had my whole house, not only my room, memorized, for safety, to a T. I reached for my doorknob and got nothing. Okay, maybe I'm not as awake as I thought. Never happens to me though. I wake up if one of my parents so much as breathes wrong across a damn house, but okay. I'm groggy. I reach to the left since I must have angled my walk wrong. Still nothing. I try right. Still nothing. Did I not walk far enough? I feel really awake now. I take another step, regretting the no glasses choice. I can barely make out shapes in the daytime and darkness is a blanket over my eyes. I can't see my door, my bed, my own hands in front of me. I can't see. Where is my door? I take another step, 2, 3, 4. I flail my arms forward, silently pleading, please, my door. And I swear I can see the nightlight in the hallway. That's there so I won't eat carpet on my way to the toilet. Thanks, Mom. But no matter where I reach, how far I go, I can't get close enough. My memory gets hazy here. After maybe 2 straight minutes of aimless walking towards a hazy outline of light around a door. But my last thought from that, between space-time, is knowing and feeling that I was not at home. Then I'm in the hallway and I sleep on the couch for the rest of the night. Looking into my room felt like staring into an abyss. Nothing ever came of it, but I don't know if anything will ever get under my skin the way this experience did. I felt so unsafe, so helpless, and so alien in that space, wherever it was, that I really wanted to share it with the masses. Case notes, file number 484. This ranks easily in the top 2 most terrifying glitches in my view, even more than anomalous entities, because you begin to doubt your own mind, and I can't imagine anything more frightening, especially when you actually realize it's happening, not like Alzheimer's where you may not even realize you're going crazy, but in this case you're conscious that things aren't right or as they should be. Imagine waking up one day, the world is entirely different, but everyone else acts as if it's normal. Like you wake up one morning and Biden isn't president. No, for some reason, Bob from down the street is president now. And everyone acts like it's normal. How could you possibly move on? To everyone else, you're the crazy one, and the worst feeling of it all is, how can you know you're not actually crazy? Anything that messes with my brain is a hard no from me. Case file number 485, written by Alex 0305 1111. Secrets of the Traveling Phone. Okay, so this morning, I got up early and went downstairs for coffee before the rest of the household woke up. It was cold, so I turned up the thermostat to make the central heating kick in. I noticed the clock said 11:11. It wasn't actually that time, as the batteries died a few weeks ago, and I never reset the thermostat clock when I replaced the batteries. I laughed and took a photo to send to my sister, as we only spoke about the fact I keep seeing 11:11 constantly at the moment. A little while later, I went upstairs to wake my children, and as I was cuddling my younger son, he asked me what time it was. I reached over for my phone, and it was actually 11:11 for real that time. I took a screenshot to send to my sister, then organized my kids' clothes, etc., and set the bath running for them to get washed and dressed. I noticed their clothes needed to be ironed, so I gathered them up and made my way to the landing, but stopped, remembering I hadn't sent the screenshot to my sister yet. I searched all the bedrooms and the bathroom and couldn't find my phone. It wasn't anywhere upstairs, so I made my way downstairs. My phone was on the kitchen counter, even though I'd not been back downstairs at any point. I thought I was imagining things, but both of my children confirmed I definitely hadn't been downstairs, so how the hell did it get there? Bonus file, written by Water is Freaking Wet, Secrets of the Grindr Demon. So yeah, this story is 100% real, and I haven't told anyone because it terrifies me to this day. I'm going to be very honest with this. I was on Grindr trying to get my jollies going. This is in Astoria, Queens, in New York City. I go to meet this guy to have fun with, and when I get to the door, I message the person, "I'm here." Then I receive a message, "I'm here at the door," but they don't open it. This is really strange to me. I'm standing, waiting for the person to open the door, and they never do. I'm kinda creeped out at this point because I feel like I sense a presence standing and looking at me through the door. I leave after feeling very uncomfortable, and then the person responds to me. They said they are demons. Like, what the hell? It kinda freaks me out. Then the person says some really strange things. They are like, "I know you are scared." And then they are like, "You should go home. I know your girlfriend is home right now. Your cat goes through the hole in the wall and tells me all your secrets," and then proceeds to tell me I should be angry with my cat for telling my secrets. After they told me this, I was terrified. In my apartment, there was a door covered by an astrology tapestry, and my cat had been literally trying to break into this door every night. It creeped me out so much, like it was upset it couldn't get in there. Eventually, I duct taped the door shut because the door kept being opened by my cat, and there was a weird draft of air coming through it into the living room. Back to the story. I'm terrified that they know my cat was going into the hole, which I think was a portal of some sorts. And then, the Grindr app starts to glitch out, and really strange symbols and almost demonic words start popping up all over the screen. I've never seen anything like it. That straight up scares the crap out of me, and I rush home. Eventually, I got back to the apartment and told my girlfriend everything that happened, and we proceeded to be freaked out for the rest of the night. Some other very strange things happened to me in this apartment as well. My girlfriend and I were making out, and I heard an extremely loud person yell in my ear, "They are at it again!" I literally almost crapped my pants in fear, and I asked my partner, "Did you hear that?" And they say yes. Of course, we were both freaked out. There was no one there to make that sound. Other things happened, but not as scary. My bathroom mirror would constantly open and close by itself in front of me while I was trying to get ready. One of my girlfriend's paintings, all of the figures, turned and looked at me, and I was like, "Nope," and ran out of the room. And when by myself, I would hear a really weird noise, like if a big party was happening upstairs, but no one was home. It was very strange, and I'm glad I don't live in this place anymore. Astoria is very weird. So yeah, that's my story. I 100% believe in paranormal things now. Let me know what you think about the weird Grindr text. Has this happened to anyone else on the app? Very curious to think of this. Was it a demon or someone hacking my phone to freak me out or something like that? Case file number 486, written by Sheed 51. Secrets of the four-man stare into my soul. I recently went out to eat with a friend, and I brought up glitches in the Matrix as a topic of conversation. My friend had never heard of glitches before, but he was very curious and grew very interested as I described what they were. I shared a few stories from the sub, and my friend immediately said, "I swear I've had some glitches happen to me, man." Then goes on to tell me 2 interesting stories that happened to him. I'm going to share them, as described from his point of view. Story number 1. I was driving to work one morning around 6 a.m. and had just gotten on the highway. As I drove, I was coming up on a car that just looked a little off. As I approached it, the only way I could describe what I saw was that the car looked like it had not fully loaded. It looked like it was buffering still or something. It looks pixelated and blurry, like a video game or something that's still loading the textures. I was so confused on what I was seeing, but it quickly fixed itself as I made my way past the car. I looked behind me and it was a normal looking car with a younger girl driving it. It looked completely different than it did seconds before. Story number 2. The other time was also while I was driving. I was on the main road driving. and was about to pass a car coming in the opposite direction. As the car passed, I saw all 4 people in the car staring directly at me in my eyes. What makes it weirder is all 4 people were extremely pale white, like paper. Also, they had really big black eyes, kind of like raccoon eyes. They also did not have pupils. As they passed me, they were all locked dead in my eyes. It was a father and a mother in the front seat and a boy and girl in the back seat. Not one of them broke eye contact as we drove by each other. So there you have it. I was spooked when my friend told me these stories, but figured someone out there may have had a similar experience.